Okay, so what we're going to be looking at today is a hand trick, which is going to help you memorize all of these values. We're just going to start with the sine and the cosine, and we're going to be able to generate all these table values using our left hand. So if you lay your left hand flat, this is the way it looks. Okay, first of all, each of the digits represent the exact value measurement. So we've got 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45, 60, and then 90 degrees. And each time you hold up a digit, it is underneath a radical, and then all values will be divided by 2. And you're going to see what I'm going to mean in a second. And the sine travels in from the left, and the cosine travels in from the right. Okay, so let's take a look at our table. All right, so we know from our table that the sine of 0 is 0, and the cosine of 0 degrees is 1. All right, so if I look at this, if I put my thumb down, which represents 0 degrees, the first thing we're going to look at is, well, what is the sine of 0 degrees? Well, if I look at it, I put this down and I write the square root of how many digits do I have up? There are 0 digits up because the thumb is down, and I'm dividing by 2. So the square root of 0 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. And now if I look at what is the cosine of 0 degrees, if I'm coming in from this side, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4 digits that are up. So I say the square root of 4, and remember, everything's divided by 2. So the square root of 4 is 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you can see that these values, sine of 0 is 0, and cosine of 0 is 1. So if I go up here, they match up to our table. So now let's take a look at the 30-degree values, okay? So if I want to go over here now, what finger am I going to put down? Now I'm going to put down the 30-degree finger, and I'm going to look at it. Remember, sine comes in from the left, so I'm going to say the sine of 30 degrees is equal to the square root of what number? Notice now that we only have one digit up, so we're going to say the square root of 1, and everything is divided by 2. Square root of 1 is 1, divided by 2 is 1/2. And now I'm going to look at the cosine of 30 degrees. So I say the square root of something over 2. So if I look at this, if I'm coming in this direction, I've got 1, 2, 3 fingers that are up. So I would say the square root of 3 over 2. That can't be simplified, so I write radical 3 over 2. And you can see, if we look at the table, it matches up exactly, right? The sine of 30 degrees is 1/2, and the cosine of 30 degrees is radical 3 over 2. All right, moving along. I think you know what's coming next, 45 degrees. Okay, they're both the same values since it is an isosceles triangle. All right, so if I slide over, now I put the 45-degree finger down. And now I want to figure out, well, what is the sine of 45 degrees? And notice that I have 1, 2 fingers up. So I'd say the square root of 2 divided by 2. And that's simplified. You can't go any farther. And notice if I want to know, well, what's the cosine of 45 degrees? Now I have 1, 2 fingers up. So I would say the square root of 2 over 2. And that cannot be simplified. So you see, if I go back to the table now, you can see here that 45 degrees, both sine and cosine have radical 2 over 2. Let's keep going. Now we move over into the 60-degree rotation or 60-degree angle. So that would be our ring finger, right? We put our 60-degree ring finger down right there. Okay, and notice now, if I want to know, well, what is the sine of 60 degrees? Okay, I'm going to count. How many fingers do I have? 1, 2, 3 fingers up. So I say the square root of 3. Everything's over 2. And we can't simplify that. That's just going to stay as is. And then I want the cosine of 60 degrees. And now you notice right here that there is 1 finger up. So I'm going to write the square root of 1 over 2. And the square root of 1 is 1. So that just becomes 1/2. So you can see how that relates to the table. The sine of 60 degrees is radical 3 over 2, and then the cosine of 60 degrees is 1/2. And then the last one we're getting into here is what happens if we get to 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, we would put our pinky down, and we kind of figure out, we'd say, well, what is the sine of 90 degrees? Well, I'm just going to count here. How many fingers do I have up? 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers that are up. So the square root of 4 divided by 2. Square root of 4 is 2 divided by 2 is 1. And then notice if we want to figure out, well, what's the cosine of 90 degrees? Notice I have the square root of, there are 0 fingers up over here, right? Because the pinky is down. So the square root of 0 is 0 divided by 2, which gives us a value of 0. So you can see here, if we rely on our left hand, we can look back up here and realize that, again, the 90-degree values will also match up. Okay, so just a reminder, set it up just like this. Sine is coming in from the left-hand direction, and then we have cosine coming in from the right-hand direction. If you can, try to see if you can figure out how to come up with the tangent values with your hand. All right, hope this helps.